we got Governor Rendell and Senator Pat Toomey pushing for term limits on Congress. They're pushing hard. Pat Toomey's not going to run another term. He believes in term limits. It gets these career-seated politicians out of there. These smirky ones, it gets them removed, like Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. You know, people don't understand how these people stay in office so long. And they got competitors, but they always knock them out before they even get in most of the time. They scare them with tactics. They try to trash their name, or they blackmail them. Whatever they need to do to get them out quit from running, they'll do it. These Democrats are evil. You know, you got about 80% of the Republicans that want term limits on both Senate and Democrat. But you only got two Democrats wanting term limits. Why? And the problem is they want to fill their pockets with money from you and their lobbyists. The lobbyists keep them in office to get what they want, to get their way. But they make you big promises to get elected, and then they never do it, over and over again. What has Joe Biden ever done besides call men of color super predators? What has Nancy Pelosi ever done? What has Chuck Schumer ever done? What has Jerry Nadler ever done? What has Schiff ever done? And then you got the new freshman AOC, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, and that other goofball. You know, the AOC +3. They've never done nothing. They don't even know what the hell they're doing. They're ignorant. AOC is the most ignorant, uneducated politician in office. How she got in, I don't ever know. She told Amazon they couldn't come to New York for jobs. But yet, she gets voted back in. I don't know, guys. She's crazy. She wants Congress to have raises because she can't afford to live in Washington, D.C. AOC, you make more money than most of the people in Washington, D.C. And you can't live off of that? You make more than the average American. We don't get raises. We don't get no breaks. You don't neither. Our tax dollars ain't going to you, bitch. Sit down and shut up. That's all you got to do. You people in New York, you guys, you good people of New York, I ain't talking about the rioters and stuff. You guys have got to get her out of office. I don't know if you can recall her or not, but I would. You got gangs taking over New York. New York's turned into a slum hole. Crime-ridden. Gangs are running it. Palomo, or whatever that douchebag's name is, and the mayor ain't doing crap. He won't let the cops do nothing. Defunded them. Took half their money. And you got Como. He's an even bigger idiot. How much death toll you got, Como, on your hands? How many people die because of you putting them in nursing homes with elders? How many, Como? Why don't you give that number instead of blaming Trump for everything? It ain't Trump's fault that you got deaths in your city. It's yours. He gave you everything you asked for. It's your fault. You're the one that's opened up them nursing homes to these sick people. Put them in there with the elderly people, killing them off. Probably just so you can get their money and put it in your pocket. You guys are evil, democratic dictators who want to run your cities like dictators, your states like dictators. You need to go. New York, wake up. Pelosi needs to go too, that crazy dingbat. She needs to be recalled or whatever. It's crazy. This country is going mad. And we're just sitting there letting it happen. It's time to make your move, guys. If you want better change, if you want this violence to stop, get these people out of office. These people that are rooting for this violence, that are supporting it, get them out of office. Tell them you want George Soros arrested for soliciting violence, for soliciting terrorist acts. He's funding these people. He's funding terrorist acts. He's funding Black Lives Matter and Antifa, both I consider terrorist groups. They're terrorizing these cities. But Ed Rendell and Senator Toomey want term limits, and that's about the only two Democrats I think that's agreeing with it right now. But the Republicans are all for it, but the Democrats are not. The difference between Democrats and Republicans is the Republicans live a modest life. The Democrats live a luscious, rich life with their high-dollar mansions, their $24,000 refrigerators, Pelosi, fancy cars, chauffeurs, gated house. Nancy has a mansion. She has 3 or 4 houses, but she has a mansion that has a brick wall all the way around it. And she don't want borders on the Mexican and American border. She don't want walls. Go lay down, Nancy. It's time for you to take your leave.
Term limits can end the entrenched partisan politics that put our country in crisis. Opinion. Days after announcing he will not seek re-election, Senator Pat Toomey joins former Governor Ed Rendell to support limiting how long members of Congress can serve. U.S. Senator Pat Toomey, PA, announces during a press conference that he won't seek re-election or run for governor on October 5, 2020, at PPL Public Media Center in Bethlehem. Jessica Griffin as staff photographer. Last updated. Share icon.
Sorry, yes.
In these partisan times, one might ask what a Democratic governor and a Republican senator from Pennsylvania could possibly have in common. The answer is, moving forward, we both believe that members of Congress should be subject to term limits. And Pennsylvania can help make that happen. We recall a time not too long ago when the House and Senate could regularly put divisions aside to address the big issues facing our country. Think of the early 2000s when, in response to the terrorist attacks on September 11, Congress overwhelmingly approved several measures that created the Department of Homeland Security, established more stringent safety guidelines at airports, and helped ground zero first responders. Read more. Pat Toomey just made the 2022 elections in Pennsylvania a total free-for-all. Advertisement. Top articles 1 of 5 read MORE term limits can end the. Now, in the midst of another crisis, members of Congress frequently focus more on blaming each other than on finding solutions. Entrenched politicians have been steering the ship of state for decades, and don't look now, we're about to hit a $25 trillion national debt iceberg. It's time for a new approach. Our elected representatives seem afraid to do anything that would jeopardize their re-election. Term limits allow them to operate without that pressure, secure in the knowledge that they are not risking the position that could be a lifetime career. They would be able to cast votes knowing that the risk they are taking would not jeopardize their entire future. 79% of Pennsylvanians support term limits on Congress, including supermajorities of Republicans, Democrats, and Independents. It's hard to find common sense in Washington, D.C., and believe us, we've looked. But that's not to say common sense is extinct. You can still find it all over Pennsylvania, from the high-tech hubs along Route 202 to the research labs, factories, and foundries of Pittsburgh, and everywhere in between. If you're with us on congressional term limits, that just means you trust the people more than the political elite. Who could argue with that? Now, there are some who say term limits would deprive Congress of legislative experience, and that professional politicians are the only people qualified to lead. We disagree. Term limits would infuse Congress with real-world experience, perspectives, and sensibilities that are often missing. Term limits would replace the smirking class with the working class. Advertisement. Read more. Should Supreme Court justices have term limits? Pro or con? By now you're probably saying, okay, I'm for term limits too, but it's not going to happen. What politician would vote himself out of a job? Thankfully, the brilliance of our Constitution solves that dilemma. The U.S. Supreme Court has ruled that congressional term limits may only be enacted by a constitutional amendment. The Constitution provides two methods of proposing term limits amendment. It can be done by either a two-thirds vote of Congress, which is unlikely to happen, or by a convention of states to propose an amendment, which is convened by state legislatures. That means state legislatures, including the Pennsylvania General Assembly in Harrisburg, have the power to bypass Washington, D.C., and deliver congressional term limits for the American people. Under the Constitution, once 34 states have applied for a convention limited to congressional term limits, Congress shall call such a convention, to which each state would send delegates. Advertisement. The convention could then propose appropriate term limits for Congress, which would have to be ratified by 38 state legislatures before becoming part of the Constitution. Our system will not be fixed by those who broke it. Without enormous pressure, members of Congress will never vote to limit their own power and influence. With that in mind, we call on the Pennsylvania General Assembly to get the ball rolling by passing a resolution applying a congressional term limits convention. Read more. Coming to terms with term limits in Pennsylvania's legislature. John Bayer. We leave you with the words of a great Pennsylvanian and fellow supporter of term limits, Benjamin Franklin. In free governments, the rulers are the servants, and the people their superiors. For the former to return among the latter does not degrade, but promote them. We couldn't agree more. Let's work on something our country is united behind, and increase faith in government. Let's place term limits on Congress. Pat Toomey is a senator from Pennsylvania. Long a supporter of term limits, he announced this week that he will not seek re-election or run for higher office. Ed Rendell is the former governor of Pennsylvania. Ed Rendell and Pat Toomey, for the Inquirer. Published. Advertisement.
So you got those two wanting it, but if you take it to the U.S. Capitol, to the Congress, they're not going to pass it. They have to have 2/3 vote, or 3/4, whatever it was. But they're not going to vote on it. They want to stay in there and keep that power. There's no way they're going to vote on it. They want your tax dollars. They can fill their pockets on the Democrat side. You know, these Democrats are all wealthy. If they've been in there for more than 12 years, they're wealthy. They shouldn't be in there no more. They steal your money. They shouldn't be living no better off than you are. They work for the taxpayer. They're in there for the American taxpayer. They work for you. You don't work for them. But they think you work for them and that they want all your money. And if freaking Joe Biden gets in there, that's where your money's going to go. It's going to go to them. He's going to up your taxes. And if you own a business, your taxes are going back up. He's going to take everything that Trump did away. And he's not going to run the presidents anyway. It's going to be a Hitler. It's going to be Hitler Harrison there running it. The one that likes people staying in jail because she can use it for slave labor. I don't know, but they got to be. You can do a lot to help out this term limit thing. You can go sign that petition for your state. If your state's not on the list, it's already done it. You can help your state get to that list. Just sign a petition. Get your friends to sign it. We need term limits. It's not going to hurt anything. It's going to make things better. Because these people get in there, they get rich, they get snobby, they'll lie and cheat their way to stay in office. They'll lie to you. No, it sounds good, but you fall for it every year. Every election year, you fall for it. Everybody falls for their lies. And what do they do? Nothing. They go to these lobbies and collect that money. They're getting rich off of you guys. And when you realize that, when you open your eyes to that, you'll see and help make the change. Research it. Look at Nancy Pelosi. How did she get rich off of being it? They shouldn't be rich. They should live no better than you. That's what they was meant to do. When they first started this country and got Congress in there, they was meant to be in session, and then when they was out of session, they didn't get paid, and they went back home to live under the laws that they created. But they don't do that now. They don't have to live under our laws that they create for us. It's good for us, but not for them. And as long as we keep them in office, it's going to get worse. Go sign that petition, ustermlimit.com. Get it signed. Help them. Spread the word. Pass it on Facebook. Share this. Share. That's all you got to do is get the word out. Share it on all your platforms. All your social medias. It's time to get this dumb shit over. It's time to get these people out of office. These riots will stop. Because these rioters won't have no supporters. And tell your Congress and your representatives that you want George Soros out of the picture. You want him to stop soliciting funds for Black Lives Matter and Antifa, and all this will go away. They lose their funds, they ain't going to have money to keep going to city to city to city. It's got to stop, guys. These people are taking your money, putting it in their pocket, living high on life while you're struggling. Especially now. If you're out of work and you ain't got an income right now and you're running out of unemployment, you can thank Nancy Pelosi for that. It's Nancy Pelosi's fault. She won't sign an extra stimulus because she wants the stimulus to fund illegal immigrants, which is wrong, and she wants it to fund Democrat cities that have been hurt by these BLM and Antifa riots. No. They should have stopped it before it started. They had the power to do so. They chose not to. They chose to stand behind BLM and Antifa and let them tear down their cities. You let them pay for it. We ain't doing it. It ain't for the taxpayer. It ain't for the business owners or the employers, employments. It ain't for them. So we ain't doing it. Screw your elected officials in office. Let them suffer like the rest of us. I'm sick of you, Nancy Pelosi. You need to go.